So guys, it's day 3 of WTF. We had amazing 2 editions of WTF 20. The first day was focused upon lettering and typography. Second day focused on paint, doodle, pattern, and illustration. And today is the day 3, which is focused on visual arts, painting and visual arts. So let's welcome our speakers for today, Eli and Dimitra Milan, who will be taking the workshop on how to create mixed media fine arts. So before we go ahead, let me quickly introduce you to them. So Eli is the owner and founder of Milan Art Institute, aiming to provide professional art training to everyone using mixture of online and offline platforms. And our second speaker for today, Dimitra Milan, is a professional artist since the age of 15. That's very impressive. And she is currently teaching the mastery program at Milan Art Institute. Overall, she loves traveling and sharing experiences of her own and sharing art knowledge within the community. So Dimitra and Eli, I welcome all of you. I welcome you both to WTF 20, and thank you so much for taking out your time and for being with us here today.
Okay, so again, we're just really excited to be here. We're really happy to connect with you all. And we are going to demonstrate today mixed media. Both Dimitra and I are professional artists. I've made a living selling my art for the last 25 years. She's made a living selling her art since she was 15, so for the last 5 years. And we are going to share mixed media. So the technique we're going to use today is inks combined with some mark making. And then we're going to finish with acrylic. Normally, we also add a layer of oil.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of artists wonder if you can paint and mix acrylic and oil. And you can if you put the water-based material first and the oil on top. So as long as you finish with oil, then it's okay. You can't put acrylic on top of oil, but you can put oil on top of acrylic.
Okay, so in the meantime, guys, let me quickly take you through what PrintShop by Designhill is and what WTF is. And we have a lot of exciting sessions coming up next for you guys, so stay tuned.
let's go over some of the materials really quickly that we're going to use. Dimitra is going to start with some mark making. So why don't you show them some of the mark making materials. So these are just drawing pens, like acrylic pens, acrylic markers.
Yeah, we have just Sakura markers. They're like a really cool permanent marker, and they look like a pastel, but they just work like a marker. And then we have acrylic Molotow markers. So these do not need like any spray to like seal them. They're perfectly fine for layers. That's why we're using them today. So the way we like to work is really loose and free, and then we go tighter as we want to refine it. So we're going to start with just some messy background layers. We're going to take turns working on this, and we'll show you each layer.
So if you could move the camera to show like what she's doing
Yeah.
there. Okay. So Dimitra is going to start with just making some marks. And really at this point, it doesn't matter. You can be free. You can just scribble around. Nothing has to be, there's no wrong or right. Nothing has to be, necessarily accurate. You don't even really have to have a plan. You're just building an underpainting. You're building some interesting marks and things for that underlayer that later, when you are painting the actual forms, those pieces from the underpainting will kind of come and go.
Yeah, so I'm just not really thinking about what I'm doing. It's just kind of an abstract, just like really having fun with it and doing like some fake writing.
And we don't have either one of us like a specific vision in mind. We are basically just thinking generally this is going to be an abstract, and then we're thinking of putting like a bird, an abstract bird on it. So it'll be mostly abstract, but in the end we'll probably put a bird.
This is like a really cool fluorescent marker. It's a Sakura solid marker. And all this is like drying like immediately, so that's why we really like to use these.
And this is just a plain old canvas bought from the store with gesso on it. Nothing too terribly special about it.
Okay, so now this next layer is going to be acrylic inks. So I'm using High Flow Acrylics by Golden. And these are just so much fun. You can get like so creative with these. And I just have a bucket of water here and some watercolor brushes, and I'm just gonna like use these like watercolor. So I'm gonna get the canvas a little bit wet. Just putting some water on it. And I'm just gonna start with this turquoise, and wow, that's cool. It like makes
very
these
beautiful.
like
It kind
bleeding.
of it bleeds as it reacts with the water.
You can also use a squirt bottle, and it makes like some cool effects.
Sam Reedy wants to know if these markers are available online, the Sakura markers.
Yep, I think so.
Do you know where they could get them?
Yeah, they're very easy to find, and you can get them on Amazon. We sell them in our art supply store on our website, and they're not very expensive, like maybe $3 or $4.
So now I'm gonna take this lighter opaque color, and when you're working with opaques, it's good to do dark to light. So I did this like kind of dark turquoise, kind of medium color. It's also kind of opaque. And then I'm doing the same High Flow acrylic, but it's like a beige white. And I'm just gonna do these polka dots, and it kind of does this really cool effect with the ink. And I'm still just not really planning too much. I'm not thinking about it. I'm just making an abstract.
What about color? Are you planning a color scheme at all at this point, or are you just going for the colors that you like?
I'm just kind of going for the colors I like, but I'm also keeping in mind that if I mix too much color, it's going to get muddy. So you guys don't want to do that. If you add like a big rainbow of color, then it can get muddy pretty quickly. So you can work in like families of color. So I'm doing like blues right now.
And Dimitra, which brands are the acrylic marker that you mentioned?
Oh, I'm just using the Sakura and Molito.
Oh, she's talking about the inks. She said
markers.
Oh, okay, sorry.
But for the inks, it's golden high flow acrylics.
Okay, that was the question in the question by one of the attendee in the question section. We have got a lot of questions from them, so I'll keep on asking them as and when
Yeah.
the time allows.
So now I'm just doing like the same thing, like dropping the ink, making these polka dots. You can also like make thin lines with the ink, like how I did here, and then touch it with the water, and it makes this really cool effect. And the Sakura markers repel the inks, so they can't really get covered up in this stage. So that's what I like about them. Okay, now do you want to add
Some alcohol ink?
inks?
Okay. So these are alcohol inks. So they're a little bit different than the high flow. They have an alcohol base to them. You can also make your very own alcohol inks with just a Sharpie pen or a ballpoint pen and plain old rubbing alcohol. So that's really convenient to be able to create your own art supplies from things that are really maybe just laying around the house. So a Sharpie pen or a ballpoint pen, and you extract the ink out of it into like a cup, and then you just add alcohol. So that's an easy way to maybe experiment with this without having to buy the materials. And as you can see, as soon as it touches water, it starts to react. And we'll put some like maybe over here so you can see how it just reacts with the water.
Oh, that's cool.
And they also dry a lot quicker than the average.
These are some of my favorite. I love using these.
And as you can see around some of these markers, it repels the ink. So you can get a lot of visual texture that way.
And Ellie, one question which is very similar to this that we have received is that the person who is asking is Nasheen, that he is very comfortable with drawing with pencil and he has just started painting, So he wanted to know what is the best medium to start with when I made one of the watercolor.
What's the best medium to start with? When
Yeah.
I think, in my opinion, it's good to just be loose and experiment. One thing that we tell our students that helps people get familiar with materials when you haven't painted and you don't have a lot of experience painting, but maybe you're really skilled with drafting or drawing and accuracy, but you kind of want to loosen up and be painterly and just free with art materials. What we tell people is to gather as many arts materials around you as possible. And it can be things like house paint. You can make your own alcohol inks. You can water down acrylic. You can get cheap acrylic, color crayons, markers, everything, and kind of gathered around. You can even paint with coffee and tea. Mm-hmm. And then just get a bunch of small pieces of paper and lay them out and just start experimenting and doing anything so that you feel comfortable with the materials. And I think that a great place to start is, acrylic paint or mixed media. You can start with graphite pencil, spray it and fix it. And then on top of it, you could try inks and mix ink and color pencils. I know you do that a lot.
Yeah, that's kind of how I start out all my paintings is with a drawing with graphite. and then I spray it, and then I add these markers that I just showed you, and then I do inks, and then after that layer, I just go straight to oils. So there's a way where you can just kind of do a little bit of everything.
So I'm going to add gold here. This is a gold metallic, and it's mixing really, really beautifully with the turquoise.
That's so cool. I'm going to add this gold. I forgot to do that. This is just the high flow goldens again, and I just wanted to add that really quick. So also, like, some of the background is still white, and that's okay. You can leave, like, in this stage, you don't have to worry about like covering up the whole canvas yet. But you'll see, like, after the break, like, we're gonna go into more acrylics and we'll do washes. And so right now, just think in this stage about like having a color theme so that your colors don't get too mixed or muddy. And you can still add like some opposites. Like if you do mostly blues, you can add a little bit of red or a little bit of orange or gold.
And Dimitra, we have one more question, which is asked by Vanessa, and three other more people who have upvoted that question. And she want to know that what other surfaces can be used when it comes to painting with oil.
With oils,
Yeah.
so you can do like primed canvas, or what I like to do is after I get a canvas, I put modeling paste, acrylic modeling paste down, and it just makes like this really smooth, nice texture for oil painting, because sometimes the canvas is really thirsty and it will like, it takes a lot of oil paint to cover it. So it's fine if you want to just do it on a canvas, or you can like put modeling paste down, or you could also paint on like a wooden panel. That's usually like those come primed as well, and that's like really nice to paint on.
Yeah, usually with oil paint, you can even paint on paper. You can paint on almost any surface as long as you seal it.
Yeah.
So some things that you can seal it with, besides of course gesso or modeling paste or gloss gel, any of those artist materials. But if you don't have those and you want to use things that you have around the house, a gloss house paint or a semi-gloss house paint, like a latex house paint, you can seal the paper. And what it does is it creates a barrier to the paper fibers so that the oil won't seep in, and it will just stay on top of that latex house paint. So really, you can oil paint on almost anything. Should we go dry this now?
Yeah.
Okay, so what I thought could happen is I'm gonna go and dry this real quick with the hair dryer so that it's all dry for the next stage, which won't take but a few minutes. And I thought Dimitra could maybe, a lot of people are interested because she started selling her art and so successfully all over the world from age 15. A lot of people are interested in how she got her start and a little bit of her backstory of just early on in your career and how that came about. Does that sound good?
Perfect.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll be right back. I'm just gonna dry this.
So she's just using a hair dryer to like speed up the process.
Yeah.
So I can just share a little bit like how I got started in art and just like how I got to where I am today. Both my parents are artists, so my whole family are artists, and all my siblings too. We just grew up in like a really creative family and atmosphere. And when I was about 12, my parents opened up our art school, Milan Art Institute, and I started taking classes there. And I just through like taking a few classes, I realized how much I really loved painting. And like up until that time, I thought I didn't want to be an artist. Sorry, that's a little bit loud. Can you tell her to? The hair dryer is a little bit loud. So like up until that time, like before I started taking classes, I was like actually not wanting to be an artist at all because both my parents were. So I was thinking I want to do something different. But like as I started painting, I just really fell in love with the process. And then I sold a couple pieces, and that was just like some of the most exciting like times for me. Like it felt really motivating and good to know like other people wanted my artwork. And so then I just got like more and more serious about it like as I got older. And by the time like I was 15, I started to like really devote myself to painting, and I spent so many hours a week painting, and I really like wanted to find my own style. And like I noticed like I was painting just all different types of stuff, and none of it was like really consistent or had a style to it. And so it was important for me to like know my voice, know my style, and I just wanted to do the best work I possibly could. So I just took like intense portfolio classes that my mom was teaching at the time, because like now we teach a mastery program, but at the time we didn't have that. So I took these portfolio classes designed for me to really like go deep into finding my style. And it was like an art boot camp. So every week we had to create like 4 pieces of art, start to finish, and you had to finish them that week. And then we had a critique. And so during that time, like towards the end, I found a style and voice, and I realized that I really love to tell stories through my artwork and combine women with animals. And it was something like I didn't see people doing, and I just thought like it was a really unique story, and it meant a lot to me. And I also dream a lot, so I was thinking like I could incorporate my dreams into my work, and so that's how it kind of started. And then I just got my work into one gallery.
That's
Huh?
that's amazing to know, yeah. And you started when you were very young, when you're only 15,
Yeah.
and most of us do not know. We have no idea what do we want to do. And the thing that you mentioned, that you were figuring out your own style. That's something that we get a lot of question about, how to figure out my own niche, how to figure out my own style. So I think, yeah, during the session we'll be answering that as well. And it's something that a lot
Yeah.
of people go through with, and this session with you and Ellie is going to be very, very helpful.
Yeah, I'm excited to share and like go deeper into that for sure, because it's definitely like a question
Yeah.
for like so many artists out there. And it's all possible. Like every person has their own voice, they have their own style inside them. You just have to find it and get it out. So I went through that process, and like because I had so much time, I was online schooled, so I had a lot of time at home to like focus on art. And because I was painting so much, I believe it like came faster to me to really find it. And then anyways, like it's a long story, but I was working with a publisher, and then they put my work in galleries, and I did that for 2 years. And then after that, I realized that like just being on social media and having that influence with people, I was able to connect a lot more deeply with my collectors. And so I really wanted to focus on that and less with galleries. And so now I'm just like full-time, like selling my work mostly online. So that's like what I focus on. And now I create like different products and prints. And also with our school has grown so much in the last 2 years. And now we have like an online school. And so I help out a lot with that. And I'm actually, my mom and I are like co-owners of the school. So I also have like a big passion to just help other artists like find their voice. And that's what
That's wonderful. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool to hear. So, all right, I hope that you guys are enjoying this session. So stay tuned. We'll share the registration link of the upcoming event. Okay, we have Dimitra back here with us. So Dimitra, please carry forward with the workshop. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, guys, please ask us in the questions section. I'll pick up the questions from there. Please go ahead, Dimitra.
Hi. Okay, so we are going to go on to the next step with the process, the mixed media process. So I'm just putting out some paint now. We have the painting's dry and we're gonna do the next layer. So I'm just using golden acrylics and Utrecht acrylics. Also this Holbein acrylic that is like really fluorescent and bright, and we love to use that as an underpainting because when you layer on top of it, it'll have like this glowing effect. So I'm just squirting those out right now.
Okay, so we are going to, what I like to do at this stage is what I call kill the white. And because there's a lot of white of the canvas, and if you're working with paper, then, you know, you can have the white of the canvas. You can have white of the canvas show. But on canvas, I mean, the white of the paper show, but when you're working with canvas, you don't want just plain white canvas showing. It kind of looks cheap and unfinished. So at this stage with just acrylic, so now we're just basically using acrylic. The acrylic paint is divided into transparent and opaque. So I'm using a transparent, something like a burnt sienna, and I'm just gonna basically work to kill the white without painting out over the layers that are underneath.
And because it's like transparent, you can still see what's underneath and it won't like cover it up too much. And at this stage, you can still be like very loose and just have fun with it. Like just think of yourself creating an abstract.
Yeah. And kind of how we think of painting is almost like developing a story where you have your beginning or your underpainting, which is, you know, setting up the characters, putting the background in, and then you have kind of your midpoint of the painting, which is where the story begins to develop and start to turn into something. And so that's the part we're at now. And then of course you have your resolution, or where it's all, you know, where you put your final details and your final touch-ups on there to really make it work.
Also share about like your favorite brush.
Yeah, so this is a really inexpensive brush. It's just a chip brush from the hardware store. And it's actually a brush I use very often in acrylic painting because you can scumble with it or just kind of move over the canvas, you know, and cover a broad area. And every time that we're painting, we use bigger brushes and then work down to smaller brushes. So you only use your smaller brushes at the very end. So I would call, you know, something like this or this a big brush, and then maybe something like this a medium brush, and then a detail brush would be last. But if you start too early on your detail brushes, then, you know, it's going to be too tight. It'll be too exact too soon, and it takes all the fun out of it. You know, we found that a lot of artists that don't necessarily you know, get bored of their process and don't, you know, they find it hard to get into the studio and paint. It's because it becomes too labor intensive and there's not enough looseness and fun surprises in it. So I'm going to add this like fluorescent pink because Dimitra put it out, and we'll see what that does.
I love that color.
So as you can see, it sort of blends nicely with the ink that's underneath it. Okay, so since we're kind of going for a bird at this stage, I'm going to add the darks in. So generally speaking in painting, especially opaque painting or acrylic painting or oil painting, you want to work dark to light. So at this stage where I'm going to start adding form, I want to work dark to light. So can you grab the source for me there? It's right there.
Hey, Ellie, so some people are wondering what's in the spray bottle.
Oh, it's just water. Do we have black? I have black over there. Okay, so I'm going to mix a dark. So just basically blue and brown here. And then I have this as a source. So we're going to put a bird probably, I don't know. We'll just wing it, see where we want to put it. So I'm just kind of like blocking in generally a general shape here with darks of this bird. So very crudely, nothing, you know, very exact. As you can see, this is the point where you wonder, do these people even know how to paint?
Well, we always say that paintings have like an ugly stage when it's like in the middle of the painting. So this is its ugly stage, and you'll see it like get more refined. And we think like the most beautiful paintings have like ugly beginnings. So just keep that in mind.
And that's a good metaphor for life, honestly. Okay, so we are going to let that set up a little bit. Do you want to work some opaque around it?
Yeah.
So since we're taking turns here.
Okay. So I'm gonna go with this brush. It's still a big brush because I'm still gonna do like loose to tight. And I'm gonna mix like kind of a creamy white color to kind of scumble around some areas. I'm gonna cover up some stuff that's too busy. So we don't like to put plain white on a canvas ever because it has like this dull like deadness to it, and we always mix like a creamy color into the white or like a light blue or pink just so that we change the white a little bit. And the opaque paint, so this white, I'm not mixing any water into it because I want it to have this scumbly look, which you'll see. Okay, so now I'm going to like kind of scumble, and I'm holding the brush like this. And I'm just like with the white kind of like blocking some areas out, just making like resting space.
Hey, Dimitra, so Neha is wondering if there's any specific reason why you don't use direct white on the canvas.
Well, it just like plain
dead
white
color.
is kind of just dead looking, and it doesn't have like this life or like juiciness to it. So plus it just adds like more interesting color when you have like slightly different variations of white. So anytime you want to put like I'm going to put another layer of white, but I'm going to mix a little bit of other colors into it. So now I'm going to make like a light blue. Now you can see the bird a little bit better. So I'm like keeping in mind I don't want to cover up everything. Like there's some really cool parts I just want to leave showing. So as you guys are doing this, don't like cover up your whole painting. You'll be really sad if you lose some of that like beginning ink layers.
Or could use a diet.
Okay. Okay, so I'm just gonna look at the bird a little bit more, and it's just like loosely sculpting out the background. And I switched to like a smaller brush because I'm getting like more details now.
Do you want to just do the details on it?
Okay,
Because
so
it takes time. Just
yeah, because we have just a few minutes left, I'm just gonna start adding like some details on the bird. So you can start like dark to light, you do the highlights last. So I'm gonna add like these mid-tones because it already has a lot of darks in it, and then I'll do the highlights. Okay.
So Ellie, maybe while Dimitra's painting, you could answer a question or two.
Yeah, absolutely.
What all genres of art do you guys do mainly? Is it just abstract like the one you're doing now, or do you do landscapes, or realism? Do you incorporate?
Yeah, we both sort of paint in, Dimitra particularly paints in something we call abstract realism. So there's always like this area of realism. And if you see this painting in the background here, this is one of Dimitra's paintings. So you can see that, she's kind of rendered out more representationally. But then, as it comes, it dissipates into abstraction. And then my style is a little more realistic, I guess, and a little less abstract. And we both paint really like dreamy type imagery. So I paint landscapes, but they're usually like kind of mysterious landscapes with some sort of magical kind of element to it. And a lot of animals. Dimitra loves to paint girls and animals together. So we both like to paint figures, animals, horses, landscapes, and some sort of, Dimitra does a lot of underwater or ocean scenes. So really we paint almost anything. And I think both of our styles on the contemporary side, but there's definitely some realism and representational aspects to it.
So someone's asking, I struggle with deciding what to paint. Any tips on deciding, what topic or what thing to paint?
Yeah, so sometimes how I like to paint is when I don't know what to paint, is I start very much like this with just an abstract, and I just play and I just have fun, and I go with my gut. I go with just what my gut wants to paint, and it's just basically color and like just forms. And then I look at the painting and I see what does that painting want to be, and I imagine what imagery would be on there, and that will spark sometimes my ideas on what to paint. Other times I'm inspired by photos, or sometimes we're both inspired by things that we dream at night or traveling, and I think the more that you paint as a habit, the more ideas come. If I am painting on a regular basis, which is usually the case, then ideas come to me faster than I can paint them. And I'm not ever really without ideas. I found working with artists that if you run out of ideas, odds are good that you're just not quite painting enough. And it isn't a weekly habit. So if you're painting almost every day, because inspiration really finds you working. As you're working, and this becomes just your job, your profession, and it's something you do every day, you'll feel inspired. When you don't paint for a while, then you sort of lose your inspiration. You don't know what to paint. You run out of ideas. So I would encourage just painting more. So here's one of my paintings, just to give you an idea. So it's good we had some paintings here on hand to show you.
People are loving it, Ellie.
Oh, good.
So Ellie, we have got one question from audience. This question has got upvoted 11 times. So that means a lot of people want to ask this question to you. So when did you know that you found your style, and how can you describe that moment?
I think that our style evolves. And so when I first got started, I had a little bit different experience in my career. When I first started in my career, I worked for I painted really for the decor or design market. So most of what I painted, I would say I didn't have a style back then. I painted basically what would sell in, because it was how I made my living, and if our children ate, and we had a roof over our head, I had to sell paintings. So I mostly was driven by stylistically and subject matter by what was selling in the decor market. But then probably about 8 years into my career, my husband and I, he's also an artist, we started collaborating and we developed a style together through collaboration. And it was that abstract realism style. And we knew it almost immediately because it felt like us. Every part of that process, I think how you really find your style is through process. And when you're painting in a process that fits your temperament, some people sort of move through life slower, some are more impulsive. So there's ways to paint that are impulsive and there's ways to paint that are really calculating and slow. And when the way that you paint really matches your temperament and the materials that you're drawn to really match your temperament, then, and you just love every part of it, I feel like that's really how you found your style. And then of course you want to be consistent. So if you work consistently, you paint consistently, and you paint in a particular process consistently, that's how you see your style develop. So for me, it took about 8 years into my career before I really found that answer. And now my husband and I, we don't collaborate anymore. And he has his style and I have my style. And they're similar to how we created together, but also pretty different. So your style also evolves over the years. It doesn't radically change from this way to that way. It's a slow sort of evolution.
Okay. So Dimitra, you want to add some comments on what you're doing out there? You have got 5 more minutes to go.
Okay, so I'm just kind of like refining it now. I'm adding some details. I started with more midtones. Now I'm starting to add the highlights. And I'm kind of making up some of the color. I'm not using the exact color here, but I'm using the same like value. So that's important. Okay. When you want to find form of things. You want to have like the right value. So I'm using this pink as a bright highlight instead of this like light yellow. So it still reads as light. And I'm just using like a smaller brush now for those details. And acrylic is really good because you can just keep layering it. And if you don't like something, just wait for it to dry and you can just add to it again.
Okay.
Are you going to add something?
Well, I just wanted to carry the blue down in here. So this is resting space too.
Okay, go ahead.
No, you can do it. Oh. we're fighting over the painting now. Who gets to paint? This is just driving me nuts. I had to get this to.
But that usually happens, when everybody in-house is very passionate about the art. Everybody just wants to jump in and contribute their part. You don't want to be a mute spectator, so that's a good thing.
No.
Yeah.
Also, we wanted to offer something to your audience. And we wanted to give them a really fantastic promo code for our school. So if anybody, we have some really great instructional videos all about mixed media, oil painting, and they're really, really popular. They're really great. And so if anybody is interested, it's only for people in this conference. And so it's 30% off, which is really great. And it's good for the next 48 hours. So,
and that's for all our instructional videos.
Yeah, all the instructional videos.
We have like a lot of different ones available. And
that's great to hear. That's great to hear.
Yeah, and the promo code is WTF art, all capitals.
That's wonderful.
Okay, I was just trying to.
Yeah, this painting needs a lot of work, but we'll probably, after this, we'll probably finish it with oils. That's what we usually do. But you can get really far with the acrylics. You can add as much details as you want because it dries so fast. You can just keep layering. But the reason why we like oils is because they're so juicy and alive and the color is really rich. So if you add oils over acrylics, of course, after they're dry, it just adds a whole other dimension to it. And so that's why we love using oils. Oh, also, really quickly, we have this pen. It's a Crink pen. Maybe some of you guys know it, but it's like this really cool urban art marker. And it's a permanent pen, but the ink is like so strong. It just comes out really fast. You have to be careful. But I'm going to add this now just in the background as something fun. So you can like write with it. You can also do like polka dots. It will literally go like over anything. It's like really strong. Okay, maybe for the last minute, like if there's any questions, we can answer.
Yeah, we have got Palak who's asking that, well, being an artist, it's too difficult for me to sell my paintings. Can you share some tips for her and everybody out here to help them with the tips to sell their art?
Yeah, there's a lot of artists ask that, how to sell your artwork, and I know it sounds maybe too obvious or too blatant, but really the best way is to create sellable artwork. So if you have artwork that's sellable, then it's easier to sell it. And so what is sellable artwork? Artwork that is uplifting, that's inspiring, beautiful. Beauty sells, hope sells, life sells, positivity sells, inspiration sells. So colors that are crisp, clean, rich, compositions that are well done. You have to have skill, and I think art that isn't overly tight, that's loose and feels effortless, like it's something that you just just sort of breathed and it came out, is the type of art that sells. Art that has expressiveness to it, brushstrokes sell, texture sells. Things that are too exact and tight and over labored, that take hours and hours and weeks and months to create, typically sell slower. So creating sellable artwork is a big key to it. And then it's building a brand, building a consistent personal brand, something that people can count on. They know how to relate to you. And in order to build a personal brand, you really have to know your voice. You have to know yourself. You have to know who you are at your core, and how does that transpire in imagery or in a visual form. And so once you build a consistent body of work that's sellable, and you build a personal brand around it, at that point, it's pretty easy to sell artwork. It's getting to those steps that it is where it takes time, and it takes perseverance. It takes hard work, and it might take, knowledge. You might need to gain some knowledge and to learn a new skill or learn how to do those things. And that's why we have our school, because it's our passion for us to train people who are passionate about art into having a profession in art. That's our main point of our whole school.
All right. So this brings us to the end of this session. This was indeed a value-packed workshop where all of you guys learned a lot, and through a practical experience of Eli and Dimitra. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Once again, I would like to thank Eli and Dimitra for taking an amazing workshop and sharing such useful tips with us. Eli and Dimitra, thanks a lot. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, guys, this is not the end. We have got a lot more for the day on the last day of WTF. The next session that we have is an AMA session on the topic, how to choose the right media and a visual artist. So if you guys are interested and haven't registered yet, I'm putting the link in the chat section. Go ahead and register now. You can also follow Eli and Dimitra. I'm putting in their Instagram handles in the chat section here. Please go ahead and follow them. To stay updated with events like these, join our WhatsApp group, of which the link is again in the chat section, where you can suggest us ideas about the workshops that we guys should be doing, and with your favorite artists. You can also watch this entire session of WTF and this workshop particularly on our official YouTube channel, Designhill. So bye-bye, everyone. Be safe and take care of yourself.